Alright, next up we're going to do a PRS Sandstorm fade. This is a request from a couple guys. I'm using that Rit Dye guitar body from earlier. I created this formula for the Transtint to try and get that correct fade. This is my first time doing this, so some adjustments had to be made halfway through. We're going to start by adding 25 drops of brown to the very far bottom where the darkest is going to be. And then from there we're going to slowly add less brown going across and yellow at the top of the guitar. So the formula is pretty simple. I break this into 5 sections, and the yellow on the top of the line is going to be 5, 10, 15, and 3 drops. And then with the brown side, it's 25, 15, 5, 1, 0. So doing this with water-based dyes is definitely not ideal. I think moving forward I would have preferred to have done this with 50% thinner and 50% denatured alcohol, but I didn't have any denatured alcohol, so I had to go out to the store and buy that. I'll do that in the next video. I think for the first try this turned out okay, and as we work through the process here I can point out some of the issues that I had in doing this. Pretty interesting to do a burst this way. I've always done a traditional burst, so good to have some inspiration doing something else. So what we'll do is we'll mix up the dyes here with some Q-tips, and then I break this off into 5 sections with about 3.2 inches between each section. Guitar body 16 inches in length, and 5 sections about 3.2. So we'll start with the heavy brown first. And there's just a tad bit of yellow left from the Rit where it's soaked in. So I'm fine doing it this way. We'll just rub that brown in. The figure on this wood is not perfectly even, and so the center figure is not as heavy as the outside figure, so as you go through the coloring looks a little bit off, and so I tried to add darker colors. I moved through this, then I realized the figure wasn't perfectly even, so I'll start with the brown. I've got the 25 drops of the brown. It's definitely not dark enough for what I was looking for. We'll just rub this in. Then we'll go with the next mix. And with this mix, I added 3 drops of yellow. I don't know if you guys caught that. So it's actually 3 drops of yellow and 15 of brown. And then we'll go over and try and fade in the darker and the lighter. So then to the third rag, this is still the 15 of yellow and the 5 of brown. And again, this is about 3.2 inches. Each section is separated. I've got that blue tape on the bottom there to just keep my mind straight. Make sure I'm not putting the dark on the light. And then this is 10 yellow and 1 brown. I added the 1 brown when I was laying this out in my head. I thought it might need just a little bit of brown. I probably didn't need it, but just makes it a tad darker. This is all about 2 ounces of warm water in each of these cups. Those are about 2.5 ounce cups. And then we'll go ahead and do the yellow with no brown. This is 5 drops of yellow, so very light. Again, we'll fade this in at the end, right there. Definitely wanted the first 2 colors a little bit darker. Wanted it to fade more. So we're going to go back, fast forward the video here a little bit. And here I'm adding 10 more drops of brown to see if I can get it to darken up a little bit. So we're going to mix that up, go back with the same rag, and dump in that brown. Just to get that color to build up a little bit more. I didn't add any more color to the fourth cup there. It's still trying to get it to fade a little bit more. A lot of going back and forth, making sure the color looks right. So the second layer of color adds a little bit more depth, and you can see it's actually looking pretty good here. So then I added 5 drops of black after I let this dry for a little bit. Really wanted that bottom to darken up, and it just wasn't doing it, and that's where I realized it was a little bit of the figure more so than the coloring. So I don't think I needed to add the black. So here you can see the fade as it's drying. It's looking pretty good, looking pretty dark. But I think in adding that dark, I got it to splotch a little bit, that extra layer. You see some splotchiness in the wood, in the yellow, and in the brown. So what I'm going to do is take a light sander, this is 600 grit sandpaper, and just sand off a little bit of that color from the light to dark. This pulls out any of the blotchiness that you see. So here, that's some naphtha to clean it up. It's actually looking pretty good. Wanted to go back then and add 1 layer of yellow, and I'm using this Mohawk deep penetrating stain, and with that blotchiness I wanted to use an alcohol based stain to add a little bit more color. So I didn't have the Transtint yellow, but the Mohawk is just as good. So I've got 2 rags, one for the dark side, one for the lighter side, and I really didn't have enough here, and just wanted to add 1 more layer of color, and usually adding that 1 layer of yellow gets everything to pop pretty nice. Not sure if I needed to do this, but I love adding that last bit of color. I always think it gets the wood to pop really nicely. So I had 2 clean rags, one for the top lighter side, one for the darker side, so I'm not pulling the color and rubbing it around. And since this is thinner based, essentially, it goes in. It's not going to raise the grain anymore. Like I said, you could use alcohol diluted Transtint or this Mohawk stuff. And if you use alcohol base for the whole thing, you won't be raising any grain, and you won't be getting as much splotchiness with the water. We'll just rub this in all over the place, make sure it fades correctly. It's actually looking pretty good here. I think this picture then, on the side here, you can really see the fading and the coloring. I wanted to color the back of the body a little bit darker. And so I took the mid-grade, the 15 yellow, and the 5 brown, and just colored the back side of the guitar. So then we'll just speed up the video here, finish coloring the back side, let this dry for 24 hours, and then what we'll do is add 1 coat of sanding sealer, and then that's where I took all these pictures. I'm unsure what kind of final finish I'll put on this, but with the sanding sealer and the whole number of pictures I've got here, the figure really jumps out. The coloring's really nice. Really nice darker on the bottom and lighter on the top. Probably not as dark as I would have liked on the bottom. But then this is outside with a bunch of different pictures, and when you turn the guitar in different lights, the coloring pops out significantly. So I went around outside and just took different pictures here, and with 2 coats of sanding sealer, this is actually looking outstanding. And you can see how the figure in the middle in some of the pictures doesn't look as consistent. I think when Paul Reed Smith does this, they've got really heavy quilted or flame maple, and the figuring is consistent throughout, so you get a little bit better coloring. But really happy with the way this turned out. Definitely will do this again with some different colors and try some other stains. Now that I've got the thinner and the alcohol, I'll use those in the Transtint. So thanks for watching the video, guys. Check out my new website, and see you in the next video.